Chat, we're going to go through my top 10 of 2021 list, and it's going to be slowly displayed here on the left side. And we're going to watch replays of the players that I think deserve each position. Now, we're starting with this first replay is a honorable mentions replay. I'm going to list a lot of people's names, but this is specifically one player who is going to get an honorable mention. I'm going to list way too many of them. So chat can also try and guess who we're watching here and what game it's from. It's supposed to be the most notable game or one of the most notable games that this player played. So this guy right here, chat, you can slowly guess. This player came onto the scene, I believe, this year and got some higher recognition. He played in some of my tournaments early in the season. Did well. He never won any of them, but made his way to a grand final in January, as well as playing in a couple different smugs. He won both of his smug matches that he played in. So he had a great mid-year. Since then, he hasn't looked as spectacular, but definitely deserving of a honorable mention, because I think at some point in time he was maybe North America's best 1v1 player for maybe a month or two. Definitely one of the best show match players. Chat seems to be pretty set on Wiz, which is interesting. I don't think Wiz played in any smugs. Wiz, who was at the time likely too young to play in any of the smugs. This is not Wiz that we're watching. We are watching a replay from January in one of my tournaments. It is a North American player, so it is not Drowly. I believe we're watching from the correct perspective. We might be watching from the wrong perspective, which would be a little cringe of me to do, but I don't think so. So nobody's guessed it yet. Nobody's gotten really close. Oh, there it is. Somebody guessed. Belly Berkey is correct. This is iRicky. This right here is a replay of iRicky beating Daniel in the Feer 500 Season 2. He knocked Daniel out of the playoffs in the quarterfinals. And at the time, Daniel, considered to be one of the best 1v1ers in the game, was maybe a favorite to win the tournament, but iRicky said no. Oh, you did say iRicky back in this. Okay. Somebody said iRicky a long time ago. He deserves an honorable mention. He didn't make it in the top 10, but his smug wins as well as his Feer 500 Season 2 second place. He lost to Drees in the final. I think he's just been a top ones player this year, but for whatever reason, didn't make it over anybody else who I had on the list. Some other names that I also want to mention, Raziers and AJ both won the DreamHacks, the big DreamHacks 1v1s, but I ended up not including them in the top 10. I think AJ, maybe out of choice, didn't really show up in many other 1v1 things. He did have a smug win against Kinsey. I think that might have been right before January, or if it was, that was kind of his only other win. He wasn't in the 1v1 game too much this year. I also have Lion Blaze. Lion Blaze has been around the 1v1 scene for a while. He was probably one of the closest people to joining in at number 10, but I gave the nod to a different player for number 10, which will probably be something only that I would do. But you know what? It is my list. I can do whatever I want. So a couple other honorable mentions that I did want to give before we move on to actual number 10 is Mo. You guys remember Mo? Mo played during Feer 5, and honestly, I thought Mo was one of the next, Drees, Daniel, Wiz, these guys who are, really great youngsters at 1v1 who were dominating. I thought Wiz was really close. If he had played the Feer 5 and kept going, I thought he could win the Feer 5 and then show up and become a name as one of the best 1v1ers. But instead, he all of a sudden quit the game and never played, another game ever again. The day he was supposed to play Chronic in the Feer 5, he let me know that he is done, and I haven't seen him back in forever. So Mo was really good. He definitely doesn't deserve a spot on the list, but I wanted to bring him up because I feel like he was an interesting storyline in 2021. And, it's fun to think what happens if Mo never drops out of the game. Why did he quit? I'm not sure. I think he grinded it really hard. I think his parents... honestly, everyone speculated, but I'm not sure anyone has a good answer. I think he said he just wasn't really happy playing it anymore. I also wanted to give a nod to Oski. Oski getting second in the Just Win was pretty impressive, as well as qualifying for FeerFest and doing well in that as well. I felt like Oski, another next-gen guy who came on the scene. Next-gen didn't go too well for him, but it was fun to have Oski as part of the one scene. Thank you, man. Thank you, Highside TV, for the tier 1 for 3 months. So way too many honorable mentions, I'll admit. But yeah, let's go ahead and reveal the names in this match. Yeah, we are watching from Daniel's perspective. How cringe is that? So Ricky was playing on the other side of the field. So I made it hard on you guys. You guys get a mulligan. That one doesn't go against you. Ricky playing in the orange this whole time. We were watching from Daniel. Sorry about that. It's not a Feer, YouTube video or stream if I don't scuff it up a little bit. We're not going to watch the end of this one, but we'll move on to number 10. Ricky and a bunch of others getting honorable mentions. All right, guys. This is number 10 on my list. We are watching from the correct player's perspective, I promise. Number 10, I believe, deserves his spot because of how much he was in the 1v1 scene this year. Specifically on my stream, but also he had some notable performances, I would say, in the one scene at large. For a long time, this player only really ever played on our stream, but he broke onto Johnny Boy's stream as well as had a big part in a couple of events. One of the biggest events he played in the North American versus EU event and held it down for North America pretty well. North America did end up losing that, but I want to say other than Daniel, he was the next best performer for NA. He had a couple good show matches on Johnny Boy's stream to top it off, as well as he played in the FeerFest 2 and was your FeerFest 2 NA champion. Chat definitely knows who it is. I gave Evo the nod. We can go ahead and just put his name back on the screen. I gave Evo the nod partially because of this win he had right here. Evo, I think maybe it grinded one sometime during this year, but he's not normally on the top 100 leaderboard. But he's kind of been NA's representative. Not only is he NA's representative in the FeerFest, but since some of the other top players have not been playing in the game, Evo is kind of who you have to think of, especially later in the year for NA 1v1. And this was a game from the match against Lion Blaze that he won. Evo beat Lion Blaze, and it was pretty comfortable. I think it was a 3-1 in a best of 5 just on a weekly show match. Lion Blaze, holding it down for North America, always at the top. And AJ and Daniel, probably the other two players from North America who, maybe could also deserve to be on the list or at this spot. AJ didn't play much, and Evo played and beat Lion Blaze. So Evo over Ricky. Yes, I did put Evo in over Ricky. Potentially that's a questionable play. But for people who know our stream, we have to give credit to Evo because he's been such a big part of the one scene for my stream specifically, but also in some other events as well. Evo losing to Ahmad, though. He played in the North American versus Middle East event. He lost in Game 5. He got reverse swept by Ahmad. If he had won that one, he maybe could have made North America win the North America versus Middle East event. I'm trying to think if I forgot anything else of Evo's, but we love Evo here at the Feer stream, so I gave him the number 10. And let's just move on. We don't need to watch these whole things. We can move on to numero 9. All right, number 10 was Evo. Number 9 is another player who is part of the top 3, I would say, in his region. He had a lot of good performances, not too many direct wins, but he did win a tournament on my stream. And if you guys check the map, I think it gives you the hint on which stream it was or which tournament it was. Chat seems to know, man. They know pretty darn quickly. It is Rawas. It's Rawas beating Moxie right here. He had to go to a reverse sweep. Not a reverse sweep, but a bracket reset. He lost to Moxie in the first time in the bracket, came back to the grand final, had to beat Moxie twice in order to win it, and he did. And I think this was a great performance from him. Moxie was peaking at the time. Technically a little bit too old for next gen, but we let him play anyways. He was 15 years old. He had just turned 15, but it doesn't matter. Rawasu is still legitimately next-gen age. Took him down. Daniel ended up not coming into this one, but Evo, Fast, a few other... Drowly was in this as well. When Rawas beat Drowly to start in order to knock him out. And this was Drowly coming off of a high performance in the FeerFest as well as show matches. Rawas also getting second in the FeerFest 2 for the Middle East. He didn't play in the Worlds. I have a feeling he probably would have met the same fate that Yaya would. I think Rawas almost definitely favored against Evo. They played, I believe, once or twice before, and I think Rawas won, or maybe it was close. But definitely I think the chat would have been favored for him. He has also been on the top leaderboard for a long time. He has never really taken the #1 spot, but he has been in the top 5 almost all season long. Even when other, Middle East players like maybe Fahad was not necessarily always that high. I just think Rawas has had a breakout year. I think when you maybe look at his tournament performances, maybe, he doesn't have any huge ones just because Next Gen is so, confined. I think it's hard to credit him too much for his grand final win. But that's why he's here at 9th. I just love watching him play. I think he's definitely coming from, the Middle East region, deserves to have a good few people in the top 10. And so that's why we got Rawas. And I think this was one of the ones we agreed about. Was it, chat? Did you guys also have Rawas at 9? Rawas played Evo twice and won twice. Yeah. Rawas gained his popularity from Jack. No, TRK was at 9. Oh, that's right. Why do you say Rawas gained his popularity from Jack? Did he play in Jack 1v1s or Jack like YouTube videos or something? Well, either way, chat. We have Rawas. Yeah, Rawas had some show matches against Daniel as well. I think he lost his show match to Daniel just barely. But he also had good performances on Johnny's stream as well, as somebody pointed out. So, yeah, Rawas at 9. Let's move to number 8. All right, guys. I can't believe Vakadis got it off just that one hint. For number 8, I have a player who also played in the Next Gen. I was just telling everybody that his decal, everybody wanted to know it so bad, and chat knows in wide agreement who it is. We barely even need to hide the names at this point. My slight hints are revealing them. I need to stop giving any hints at all. Moxie the Frenchman, joining the 1v1 scene this year. Also a Next Gen player, and dominating the ranked 1 leaderboard as of late. And I think that's honestly a big part of the 1v1 scene. I know it's not the most important thing. Show matches and tournament results are very relevant, but who is #1 on the leaderboard, I think is recognized a lot. I think it's why Khaleed gets so much credit. He's so frequently at #1. At almost all times you check the leaderboard, you have him. This year, apparently Jack had a huge stint at #1, setting the ranked 1's record as well. I think Moxie might have broken it. Did Moxie break it, chat? I know they played a game together against each other to like try and have Moxie beat it, and he didn't win that game necessarily, but I thought maybe he broke it eventually. And I think chat is confirming that he did. So Moxie, a great ones player. He also does YouTube and Twitch, and I think he's kind of like a ones main, at least as of now. So definitely a player who had a good year, good to have on the list. I think he got second in the FeerFest EU recently. He ended up losing to KV1 in the Worlds, but a really good performance against Joriez. Joriez, hard player to take down. Moxie got about as close as anybody else, other than, of course, KV1. So a good year for Moxie. He's had a little bit of trouble with success in show matches, I think, on Johnny's stream, but he actually, looking back through the history of show matches on our stream, he's done really well. Beating out, a number 10 player, Evo, when they went for an NA versus EU matchup. That was a long distance one, because we ended up doing like win by 2 or something like that, but Moxie was able to get the win. So yeah, Moxie spending a long time on the leaderboard. Feer, who is he playing here? Oh, he's playing Rawas. This is also from Next Gen. This is the first game from Next Gen that Moxie won. I didn't have loads of replays of Moxie because in the FeerFest, which was a couple good wins in FeerFest to make it to the finals, he was covered by the other side of the bracket, so I didn't have those replay files of him winning. Otherwise, I probably would have used those. But yeah, This is Moxie versus Rawas. The flick game was absolutely insane in this tournament from him. And I believe he is deserving of my number 8 spot on the list. All right, chat. Number 7. This Rocket League player had a decent year. He is one of the players that you expect to see high on everybody's lists for all time, as well as, you know, top in skill. But it's about whether or not the player had a great year this year necessarily. This player won a smug this year. I believe they won a smug against Monkey Moon right at the beginning of the year, January 1st. He also played in the Fear Fest. The first time around, he played in the Fear Fest, and he won Fear Fest EU. He won Fear Fest EU, but didn't have a great showing because he lost to Drowly in the Worlds. Drowly ended up really just dominating the Worlds. But other than that, Khaleed not showing up too much. I mean, a couple people other said it, but I'm going to throw it in. You guys can see his name in here now. He's playing against Jack. This is Khaleed versus Jack in the Fear Fest EU Grand Finals. I think he ended up losing this game. I don't know why I picked a game that he lost, but he does win this series against Jack. Khaleed not having the best of performances in other places. He played in the DreamHack EU, but didn't make it very far. I think he ended up getting knocked out by Luis P. And then he also played in the Just Win and lost early in the Just Win. But the reason why Khaleed is still up here high is because dominating the ones leaderboard at all times definitely feels like it's up to Khaleed whether or not he is going to be in the top ones. And as the year went on, he had to drop out of Mount 1v1, so he didn't get to shut all those players down in the Mount 1v1. That certainly would have helped. I think the focus has shifted to threes for Khaleed. I'm not sure if we're going to see a ones focused Khaleed anytime soon. Understandably, him and the rest of his squad for Smug has been, you know, or sorry, for Smug, for RLCS, I know I'm talking about Smug, but for LCS have been, you know, since the announcement, not been playing too many ones. So I'll tell you what, man, I'll reveal it later. I might not have mentioned it yet for the YouTube video, but I did an algorithmic, like, based on tournament finishes as well as ranked location and notable show matches in order to, like, make a tier list. And I think this is right where Khaleed was at. Nice flip reset shot for his first goal in this one. I gave Khaleed both notable show match records. I think he had, you know, a couple he had Smug, as well as I gave him 2 points in the ranked leaderboard like category. Even though the ranked leaderboard was weighted the lowest of anything else, Khaleed is always high, always like 1, 2, 3, and I think that's really a relevant thing to who's, you know, the best playing 1v1er in a year. Maybe honestly, you could argue enough to put Khaleed up even higher. Chat had Khaleed super, super high. I would argue Chat is a little bit nostalgic, potentially. I think when you look at this year in a whole, Khaleed didn't necessarily have the most dominant year, and not because he couldn't have, but just because it didn't seem like maybe he was as focused in it. But yeah, I have Khaleed at number 7. Chat, of course, should be wildly upset with how high they put Khaleed. I think they put Khaleed number 2. So I have him all the way down at 7. This is a big win against Jack in the Fear Fest. So this is definitely something to hang his hat on. He destroyed the Fear Fest till he got knocked out by Drowly. It was a bummer because he beat Drowly in the EU portion of it, but couldn't finish him off in the Worlds. Jack should be lower than Khaleed IMO. Well, I have Khaleed all the way down at 7 for the year of 2021, and we will move to number 6. All right, this player is number 6 on the list. Chat, get your guesses who it is. This player came onto the scene, I believe, starting this year. We really didn't see anything from him before this year, but he had a really high peak. I'm not sure if anybody had a higher peak. He had, maybe there's 1 or 2 players I would say had a higher peak, but for a brief moment in time, this guy was the best player to do it, and chat, they know it. They're spamming it like crazy, so I won't hide it much longer. This is the Fear Fest 1 grand final match. This is Drowly versus Jack. Drowly came onto the scene really, really fast, because not normally when you're a ones player, you know, joining the show match scene, even if you're high rated, you don't usually get to go right at the Kings right away. Usually you get a little test out with some other players, but I think Drowly's debut was a double debut alongside Moxie. Him and Moxie, who are both high rated, played in a debut on Johnny Boy's stream, and Drowly got that win. Right after that, I think Jack was in chat. Jack was in chat and said he would be willing to play Drowly after Drowly got the win. So Drowly and Jack went against each other. At the time, you know, Jack considered to be the best, maybe one of the 2 best players in 1v1. You know, in form, focused on it, I believe, is how I remember it. Maybe not true. And Drowly got the win. Drowly took Jack down, and so all of a sudden it was like, wait, Drowly beat Moxie, but he also beat Jack. Do we have a new player who's, you know, the best player in the game? Quickly, Daniel, who was also, you know, highly rated at the time, ended up getting matched against Drowly in what was a pure EU game. Drowly beat him, I think, pretty handily. Maybe it was close, but I want to say Drowly got the win. Maybe even a sweep. I don't know. That might be me misremembering, but it definitely was a Drowly win. Daniel said that he lost because they weren't doing fair servers, that they did it only on EU. So they did a rematch shortly after in which they shared servers. They did some on US East and some on EU, and Drowly won again. So Drowly showed up into the show match scene huge, absolutely on fire, taking all the best players and showing that he could take them down. Shortly after Drowly showed up on the scene, we had the Feer Fest. The Feer Fest happened very quickly after Drowly had those wins, and it definitely capitalized on Drowly's peak. I think Drowly was peaking around this time, got to play in the Fear Fest. He lost to Khaleed in the EU. In fact, he didn't have a good pool play at all, but he also lost to Khaleed in the EU playoffs. But he made it into the finals and just had to play through a lower spot in the bracket, and he did so. Made it through Khaleed and Jack to win. Everybody wanted to see the potential Drowly Daniel again in the finals, but it didn't happen. Jack knocked knocked Daniel down, and so instead he got to, you know, take down the 1-2 of Rocket League 1v1 at the time. Jorias wasn't in this tournament, so he didn't have a chance to beat him. But shortly after the end of FeerFest 1, after he beat Khaleed and Jack, we set up a show match, like a couple $100 show match against Drowly and Jorias. I think Drowly swept Jorias. So he took down basically all the players who everyone was listing as the best 1v1 players in the world. Most of them in a tournament setting, some of them in a show match setting. So it was like Drowly was number 1. It was crazy. And then after FeerFest, he played in Next Gen and didn't do great in there, and then disappeared. He was off the map after he just truly dominated the scene. He had a little bit of a poor performance in Next Gen, and then he was gone, never to be seen again. So who knows? Is Drowly still amazing? Is he potentially still the best? He's just not around. It's hard to know. But that is why he only comes in at number 6. I mean, who knows if Drowly had stuck with it, if he may not have finished even higher. But yeah, Drowly, very exciting player. I think everybody wants to see him back. The number one thing that people comment about on YouTube videos, or not number one, there's lots of things, but a bunch of people are asking, where's Drowly? Where's Drowly? We want to see Drowly again. Oh yeah, he tweeted he got a new controller recently, so maybe we will see him back. But yeah, Drowly number 6. I think a well-deserving spot for him. Few people making it over him, but not many of them having a higher peak than he did. This is my number 5 best player. Oh man, he just did his signature move. He just did his signature move to start up this replay. I didn't even realize which replay I grabbed. But this player, also brand new on the scene, and a special place in my heart just because I think I might have helped him jump onto the scene and gain some recognition. His first ever show match was against Daniel. It was around the time that Daniel was peaking super, super hard. And he played a show match because he was the number 1 rated player in SAM. He was around the top 20-ish or so. And so we wanted to see how Daniel did against the SAM player. Everyone has realized now it's KV1. Very Living says it is far too low for KV1. But this is where he ends up. He had a great finish to the year. I think, you know, if you had a little bit more recency bias, you probably put KV1 even higher. But I did end up only putting KV1 at 5, and maybe that is actually also because of recency bias. But anyways, KV1 really good in the show match scene, has destroyed most players he goes up against. He destroyed the Mount 1v1, taking Joreuz down and almost dropped like no games in Mount 1v1, which is really his coming out party. He had a great few show matches, but when he took Joreuz down in Mount 1v1 was when everybody was like, wait a second, is KV1 the real deal? You started to see KV1 on Johnny Boy's show matches more around the time that that happened. I don't think KV1 picked up any losses on Johnny Boy's stream either. So KV1 really, definitely dominating the high ping matchup. I think, just dominating in general, but it is tough because he has to play players at 130 while other players play, at their unnatural ping. But he even beat some North Americans. That being said, the North Americans he didn't beat were Forky, which he lost to 2-0 and then forfeited out game number 3, as well as Lion Blaze. Now, Lion Blaze is, Forky's a tough draw, but so is Lion Blaze in a USD setting. Lion Blaze, I think, went up quick 2-0 on him, and then he also forfeited game 3 in that as well. So I think the both times he lost on USDs against some of the best USDs players, it didn't go well for him, and he ended them early, which is a bummer because unfortunately, everything else will force people to say things about the ping. Playing against the EU and Middle East guys on a ping that is high and maybe that you guys aren't used to is always going to be considered an advantage for KV1. But if you can do it against the USD's players as well, then there'd absolutely be no way anybody could argue it. I think they really shouldn't be arguing it that much anyways. But a couple blemishes on KV1's record, certainly those quick forfeits in show matches, as well as the loss to Fahad in the FeerFest 2 finals. He rolled through Sam, but I don't know if it's really fair. No one else in the Sam region for FeerFest 2 is really close to being top 10 or having the best top 10 1v1. So it's kind of, I mean, he didn't lose a single game, which is maybe some credit to be given there. He has dominated his own region and performed super well. I think going forward, KV1 will probably be even higher on these lists. But according to tournament results, this is where my system had him, and I didn't disagree with it enough to move him around. I kept the 4 players that are above him ahead of him. So KV1, number 5, maybe a little bit low. Chat, some people certainly seem to think so. I can't remember where you guys had KV1. I think you guys might have had him higher than 5. But this is where I'm putting him now, and we shall head to number 4. Chat, number 4 player. A dominant player coming from a match that was fairly recent. You guys should maybe recognize. This player won one of, if you ask me, and I am heavily biased, one of the best 1v1 tournaments this year, as well as the most recent, and it is hard not to have the recency affect us a little bit, although technically we should judge all of 2021 exactly the same. Are we watching from the wrong perspective again? I don't think so. Yeah, we're watching from the correct perspective. Chat seems to know who it is. It is Fahad. Fahad with a win in the Middle East for the FeerFest, the FeerFest Middle East region, FeerFest 2, as well as the FeerFest Worlds. A big win, I would argue. Fahad also getting top 1 on the leaderboard, something that I include as part of 1v1 dominance. Not a lot of players. The list of names who have held rank 1 is pretty short. Fahad grabbing it recently. To be fair, only holding it for a short period of time, so you could argue, the recency bias helped us there. Maybe there were some other players who held it for a really short amount of time somewhere else in the year that I forgot to kind of include and give points for that. But Fahad finished so incredibly strong. That's why he is finding himself at number 4. He had some good show match finishes too recently on Johnny Boy's stream, as well as winning one of the 2 or 3 premier events this year. It's hard to say Fahad didn't have a great year, and specifically KV1, who maybe had a similar year, maybe even had a slight edge. It didn't seem right to slot KV1 in at 4 and Fahad at 5. when so recently they had a match in which Fahad had the edge. So it seems like Fahad deserving of the number 4 spot over the 5 spot, where KV1 maybe would have been otherwise. So yeah, chat, maybe not too terribly upset about where Fahad is. I don't know if there's much other to say about that. We've seen him play so recently. We know everything that he did. A lot of it has happened here in the final couple months to finish it off. If he scores 7 goals, he will score 8. He didn't play in any Turn to Show matches at all. Oh, you're talking about first killer. Yeah, first killer. All right, let's move on to number 3. I think we chatted enough about Fahad at number 4. All right, guys, number 3 on my list is the player you see before you playing in one of his best wins of the year. The problem with this player is he is a bit of a king of second place. If you look back at his tournament record throughout the season, I did give a lot of credit to second place. I think performing high in many tournaments is a good thing to do. And chat seems to be pretty set on who they think it is. This player got second in FeerFest EU, got second in the FeerFest Worlds, tied for 3rd in Just Win, as well as was part of the crew for EU when they played NA versus EU that helped, you know, put EU on top. Almost everyone has known who it is. It's also a player, I think the reason why, I think some people were asking, you know, how is this player so high? I think this player is extra high because of the ranked season and the dominating that they did, and kind of changed the ranked ones game. For the longest time, Khaleed controlled ranked ones in a way that was seemingly untouchable. But for what felt like multiple months this year, I'll just reveal who it is. You guys already seem to have guessed it. Jack, like, set new world records in 1v1. He grinded 1v1 content super hard and just was the name of 1v1s this year at many different moments. But his only reason why he maybe shows up behind the 2 players in front of him is, like I said before, a little bit of king of second place. Not too many times did he take a full win and take a tournament down that had a lot of top other players in it. I mean, just seemed to be outside of being the best. When he played in the NA versus EU, he lost to Daniel in their matchup sort of handily. He did in this one right here, though, make up for that. This is the FeerFest World Final, the semifinal against Daniel. He crushed Daniel 4-1. So he made up for that Daniel loss. But also in the FeerFest EU, he ended up not winning it. He lost to Khaleed. And then the FeerFest Worlds, he ended up not winning it. He lost to Drowly. And he got 3rd in the Just Win, which was a tough one to win. Single games is rough, but he got himself there. He's always close. I mean, he's one of the best players in the game, and that's undeniable. But he doesn't come out with some wins, which I think that the players ahead of him kind of did. They kind of did reign as top dog, clearly, if you ask me, at least for a brief moment in time. So I have apparently Jack in number 3, and I think that's all I have to say about that. All right, the number 2 on my list, a player that I think was one of the most dominant players in 1v1 this year. And chat's got it, it's Musty. Musty it is. No, I think this player had one of the highest peaks. We were talking about Drowly and how he had maybe an even higher peak. This is one of the players who I think you could argue peaked even above Drowly, which is tough because he has a couple direct head-to-head losses against Drowly, which is not good for that sentiment. But there was a time in which this player absolutely was untouchable in North America. We've seen that before from other players. First Killer in his heyday was untouchable against other North Americans. This player absolutely could not be fazed by any other North American. And of course, by now, chat has to know, so we will reveal. I keep pressing the wrong button every time. But it is Daniel. Daniel destroying North America. I know everybody else on my stream felt like Daniel was the best player in the world at the time, and we were just trying to get everybody to drink the Kool-Aid. How did they not realize that Daniel is peaking so high in ones? So one of the reasons why I set up the North American versus Middle East event was because everybody wanted to see Daniel against Khaleed. Of course, Khaleed, not only one of the most popular 1v1 players of the game, but he's popular for a reason. One of the best in the game. And I would say that this match, this is the Daniel versus Khaleed match, was favored to Daniel. I talked about it a lot before. Because it was just a show match, I think Daniel was more in form and cared more. At the time, Khaleed had nothing really to prove, I would argue. He was one of the best in the world, whether he won this match against Daniel or not. And I think this was a little bit of a coming out in 1v1 party for Daniel. He needed to get this win to show that he was more than just a dominant North American. He was relevant on the world stage as well. And he did. He beat Khaleed 4-1. So he took Khaleed down, cleanly, only dropping a single game to Khaleed. Then the next day, going up against the other two players from the unanimous top three, Jorias and Jack, Daniel tied against Jorias because that was a possibility in the North American versus EU event. So that left a little bit of a blemish on his record, but then went 5-1 against Jack. It was the last game of a long day, but, it was the last game of a long day for both players, and Daniel came out big time on top, 5-1, because they played 3 games on NA and 3 games on EU. It wasn't like a best of 9 or anything. So I believe Daniel at that time was the best 1v1 player in the game. I'm sure I would have put money that if he had went back at it again with Jorias, that he could maybe get the win instead of just a tie. But to be fair, I am heavily biased. He only ended up getting 1 tournament win. Next Gen Season 2 was his tournament win, as well as the Fear Fest for North America, which had Lion Blaze in it, and Wiz and iRicky, some other top players. And Daniel just cruised through North America like he always had. The problem with his end-of-year performance, why he's only at number 2 instead of what I think could be number 1, is he fell off of the world a little bit after the Fear Fest. The Fear Fest, he stayed around to play Just Win. He ended up playing Just Win and losing, I think, immediately to Oski, but then wasn't really around the 1 scene ever again. He kind of did Mount 1v1, but then dropped out. And so, although he peaked really, really high, I don't know if he got bored with it, felt like he had done everything he needed to do in 1v1, but we never really saw him again. And now, 15 years old, I'm not sure we'll see him play once. We may have another situation of a first killer, a dominant ones player who switches to 3s as soon as they have the opportunity, and we may never see him in ones again. So a great year for Daniel. North America has to hang their hat on Daniel. There's not a lot of other successes that North America had in cross-regional play other than Daniel. But we may have to say goodbye to him as well and hope that he can hop into the RLCS scene and, give NA some hope there, since NA's in a little bit of need of that as well. So I had Daniel at number 2. A great year from Daniel. Nostalgic for sure. Will we see him again? Who knows? But it was definitely a fun time having him on stream. All right, guys, number 1 on the list. I think everybody already knows it. They were going to be able to spam it before they even saw the replay. But this player seems to be the best player to ever do it, and I think had a very complete year. And that was one of the keys why he got the edge over maybe some of the other players in the top 10. He had just a great 1v1 year. He always does. He had some recent show matches against apparently Jack. I think he won a Smug against apparently Jack in Smug 6, as well as won a recent show match against apparently Jack, as well as winning the Fear Fest EU and putting himself in the semifinals, but losing to KV1. In fact, the only player that seems to be able to stop stop Jorias, which you guys already know who it is, probably didn't even need to hide it, is KV1. KV1, he has yet to beat, but he has to play him on USC servers, so maybe those aren't the best for him. That being said, I was very interested, since KV1 had the edge over Jorias so hard, how he would handle Wisty, because he played Wisty, which is kind of the number 2 Sam player at the time. And apparently, I didn't get to watch it because it happened on another stream, chat said that Jorias really handled him. Like, it was no issue at all. It was a 3-0 sweep, and, chat suggested it was not one of those regular 3-0 sweeps. It was a real, for real 3-0 sweep that Joreas dominated in. So it kind of gives a little bit more credit to KV1 because that game was played on US East as well. So it's not just that US East Joreas can't handle it. There is a little bit of, if not mostly, KV1 being the thing that he can't handle. That being said, Joreas still had a great year. I think, according to the point system that I made, Joreas actually came in at number 2 behind Daniel. But since Daniel never really beat Joreas, as well as Joreas never, quitting out on the ones game like Daniel did, I did manually swap and put Joreas above Daniel. I think Daniel was slightly biased in my point system because he played on my stream so much, and that was a lot of the things that I remembered to include. So I think in the ones world, because this is not just my stream performance, Joreas number 1 continues to hold number 1. Even though he has nothing to do with the ranked leaderboard. He actually recently got high on the ranked leaderboard, but usually he's not on the ranked leaderboard at all. Feer why? NA could have taken the W. I know I should have spoon-fed North America a win, but no, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. If Daniel maybe had beat Joreas in the NA versus EU, maybe it would make sense to give him the edge. If you guys don't remember, you might be wondering, why did I pick a replay in which Joreas gets absolutely smoked? This is the replay. He comes all the way back. He goes down 6-1. I think there's only like 2 minutes and some seconds left on the clock for him to come back. And he came all the way back and ended up winning in this Game 7 against Moxie for the FeerFest EU. So this was one of the most exciting series. Joreas just gave us really exciting series as well. I didn't get to be able to catch as many of the other ones, not on our stream, but in the FeerFest, man, against Luis P and Moxie. Those were some of the most exciting series. If we did like maybe we'll do some kind of end of year awards that chat can give. I kind of thought about this, but I thought about it too late, for like most exciting series or best rookie in the one scene, etc., stuff like that. I think Joreas' series would probably be really high as, series of the year. It would not surprise me. He does have head-to-head losses to Daniel and Fahad. Wait, you talking about Drowly? Wait, who? Joreas has head-to-head losses against who? Or are you talking about KV1? KV1 has head-to-head losses against. Yeah, KV1 maybe a little bit low. Looking back, maybe KV1's a bit low. I think I manually swapped Fahad ahead of him because of the Fahad recent win over KV1. I think the point system might have had KV1 at 4. People were saying Jack was too high. I don't think so. I think Jack was a big part of the 1v1 this year. And just because he didn't pull down a big tournament win, I think like he was 1v1 in 2021 in a big sense. So I definitely don't have any issues with how high Jack is at all. Oh, you're saying you actually agree with my list more than mine. Well, what do you think, chat? There's the list in total. I will actually tab out real quick and I'll add Joreas in, and then we can continue to watch the insane comeback as we maybe chat about the list a little bit more. Is Drowly North America or Mina? I think he's still Mina. I'm not sure if he's back in North America yet. Joreas is always overrated. You could be right, but other than the KV1 losses, he did have a quick show match loss to Drowly. I think he got swept by Drowly when Drowly was peaking super hard. But the thing about Joreas is he's always been around. He's always been playing the one scene. Some of the other top players, like Drowly, an absolute top player, and then faded away. If Drowly had maybe kept playing and tried to continue to be at the top, I think Drowly maybe could have argued for like a 1 spot. I think Daniel, too. Daniel also, really high peak. If he had kept with it, does he take this spot? There's a good chance, but he didn't. Joreas has never stopped. He just has a different mindset, I think, with playing these ones tournaments and these ones matches. Doesn't seem to, put too much stock on winning or losing, and then comes out and wins almost all the time. So I think Joreas is still the king of ones. I think, especially in this year, this is a great double. The comeback, slowly working its way back in. Joreas doesn't even play ones. Yeah, he did get knocked in that he did not get any ranked leaderboard extra points. And but he did get notable show match record because I think he beat Jack in a recent show match, which I felt like needed to be included. Couldn't be skipped over. Joreas didn't even grind ones that much. Yeah, I know. He started grinding ones recently, apparently. Maybe he's going to do YouTube videos. Jack, Daniel, and Fahad all have more experience and thus also more losses than KV1, so it's hard to say. Yeah. I mean, KV1, dude, it's interesting. If KV1 plays out, like what happens if KV1 plays out his games with Forky, Lion Blaze, and Fahad? His 3 big losses. If he plays them out, I wonder if it changes any different. He cut all of those off early, and I think they could all be pretty relevant. You know, it does kind of force him into a loss. Or what am I trying to say? I don't know. But anyways, that's my list. Why is Khaleed so low? I just don't think he's done that much this year. I think people think about his history and how he's dominated like all years. I think that's true. I just think just 2021 maybe didn't have too much Khaleed successes compared to previous years. I think Khaleed's still like, you know, maybe #1 GOAT, like I said before, not long ago. AJ is on. All right, well, I'm going to say goodbye to YouTube. I think that's the end of the YouTube video. Thanks for watching. That's my top 10.